Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
You all set there, Glenn?
I'll tell you.
Brian's all business, man. I'll tell you.
I know, man. There is no break in this studio. You just, it's get after it.
Get after it. And
start doing the sober push-ups.
That's right. And thanks to Audio Hive and Brian getting us kicked off. You know, we're sitting here chatting and the mics aren't hot, as they say.
They should be. I'm telling you, we keep talking about that one of these days we should do the parking lot.
I know.
Pre-session.
And all of a sudden I hear you two, and I'm like, oh, we're on. You know,
awesome.
People are joining us at the coffee shop.
Well, we do have an update.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
We probably need to boost the Coffee Kitty because Audio Hive maybe or is transitioning to Audio Hive Video Hive.
Audio Hive Video Hive.
So you never know. Wow. Sober.Coffee may not just be audio anymore. May throw in some video.
There. Season 1, right?
That's awesome, man. That's great. Good
fantastic.
Seeing you, brother.
Hey, good seeing you, too. I got my running shoes on today, Glenn.
Dude, so do I, man. I got new running shoes.
Nice.
I haven't run in them yet, but
it's all about the equipment.
Good.
Well, I run to the 7-Eleven in mine. Get a Slurpee.
Well, at least you don't run to the liquor store anymore, right?
No, I don't.
Amen, man. Yeah. All right, man. So it's great. Hey, we got our normal table again. Love it.
Yep.
So
what's on topic today?
You know what? You made a list a while back of just kind of, you know, sober spews. You know, probably a good way to put it. But just a list of stuff that, topics, and some of it comes from listeners. You know, we get some great interaction from listeners on podcast at Sober.Coffee. Mm-hmm. That's our email address,
right?
Podcast at Sober.Coffee, but also on Instagram and Twitter. And, so I started looking at this list, and one really popped out, and it's called Recovery is Not a Race. Mm. And, wow, I thought it was, right?
Yeah,
So when I started looking at that, and it really stuck with me, I started thinking about progressive recovery, right? So I just thought, hey, let's just throw it out there and chew on it for a while.
So my question is progressive recovery a thing, or is this just what you're coining it?
That's just what I coined it.
Okay. And so what?
Well, no, I shouldn't say that. So I actually Googled it.
Yeah.
And there's some program out there called Progressive Recovery.
Eddie's Progressive Recovery?
But I didn't really look into it.
Okay.
But I did see it.
All right, maybe we'll check it out. If it's anything decent, we'll throw it in the resource room.
That sounds great. So, when you sit there and say recovery's not a race, I have to take you back to my first rehab. Mm-hmm. It was pretty bad when you have to number them, right? It's like numbering wives.
Did you have like 1A and then 1B, or was it just
no?
one?
I had solid numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera.
Et cetera.
Yeah,
that's fed up.
That's pretty bad. So
that's right. You're here now. You're here now.
Absolutely, man. I haven't had a drink yet today, and it's 6:30 in the morning. So
there you go.
So my first rehab, I remember, was out in Laguna Beach, and it was like this real posh place, and real important things for sobriety, like a private chef and massages and stuff like that.
It's important.
Really feeds sobriety. So I got a temporary sponsor while I was out there, and it was a guy that came and talked to our program, and we had 30 people on our program, whatever. And he came and spoke, and I just knew he had to be my temporary sponsor. Mm. And I knew it because he had a really cool watch on. He had some cool, Gucci's on. And so I thought, well, he's probably of my caliber, right? And he probably qualifies to be a temporary sponsor. So I didn't want, this is how much of an asshole I was. I didn't want anybody else in the room to tap him as a temporary sponsor.
You had to get him first.
Right in the middle of the meeting.
Oh, you did.
I raised my hand. I'm like, hey, dude, would you be my temporary sponsor? And he's like, I'll talk to you after the meeting. So anyhow, I can remember him, great guy, but he put up with me but I can remember driving down. He had a convertible Mercedes, and we were driving down Pacific Coast Highway, and I can remember like it was yesterday. I remember I had my nice watch on. I remember tapping it with 2 fingers and looking at him. I'm like, "Hey, dude, we got to finish these 12 steps. I got to get back to work in 3 weeks."
All right.
I can remember doing that. So clearly, he realized.
What he had as a sponsee.
Exactly. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have said yes to this guy. But I thought it was a race. I thought it was 12 steps, and I didn't really know about AA until I went to this rehab and was thrown into this AA meeting after 6 days in detox. I didn't know,
Right.
And I'm like, well, okay. I mean, I'm a driven, goal-oriented guy. Let's get these steps done.
Let's get them done, right? It's a checklist.
And I remember him looking at me. He goes, look, let me just tell you. He goes, if you ever finish the steps before you pass away, you're in trouble.
All right.
He says the steps are an ongoing process. So that was kind of being thrown into it from what it looks like as a race.
Right. So you were looking at it like a sprint, because when you say race, I'm okay with it being a race across, a long distance race, a marathon, right? And that might scare some people away too, because when a finish line is a long way away, there's a lot of work in between the first step and the last step. Right?
Yeah, but I didn't want a lot of work.
I know.
I wanted immediate result, and I was frustrated that I had to take 30 days.
Right.
I mean, I was into taking, a pill, promise of a pill, right? That never lived up.
Right.
So when you first walked into AA, what were you thinking as far as time frame? I mean, were you thinking it was pretty?
Yeah, honestly,
pretty
sure.
quick fix.
Yeah, I was thinking. First of all, one of the first things I heard in there is, "Oh, welcome to your first meeting. Hey, really try and get 90 into 90." Right? And we talked about this a little bit when Natalie was at the coffee shop, right? And I thought, "Oh, great! So this is a 90-day program, perfect for me." That fits into my calendar. But no, the reality, because. Here's the thing. I didn't want to say the word forever. I didn't. So when you say the word forever,
meaning quitting forever.
Oh, right?
Yeah,
So that means there's no finish line, and that's very frustrating. Walking through the door and thinking that never is a big word, right? Never's not so ominous to me now. And never is. I'm okay running the race because I'm enjoying the scenery.
That's a great way to look at it. So when I started thinking of the word progressive recovery, I immediately don't like that because I want instant results. Now I've changed, but that's primarily how I live my entire life. I wanted instant results. But the first thing I focused on that really helped me, Mikey, was my alcoholism was progressive.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't go from level 100 to 0, the point of surrender, in one day or 1 week or 30 days. I progressively got worse day by day, month by month, year by year. It got worse. And as soon as I say that, I'm reminded of the frog story. And they actually call it the boiling frog syndrome, right? Where if you put a frog into a pot of boiling water, it jumps right out. It doesn't get boiled, it jumps right out. But if you put a frog into a pot of cool or warm water and turn it up a degree at a time, it will eventually hang out until it boils. And I look at that in my own drinking career is if you had told me day one, you take that drink, you're going to end up losing everything you have in your life, everything that you love, all the people that you love, all the money that you have, all the prestige you have, you're going to lose it all. And you're going to be sitting on your counselor's floor on a Friday afternoon without a thing in the world and saying, I'll do anything you tell me to do. I never would have taken that first drink.
But you know what the thing is? It wasn't, I don't know if you would have or wouldn't have, because as I'm listening, I'm saying, well, would I have done it? I probably wouldn't have believed that I was charting the course that you were describing.
Yeah,
right.
I totally get
that. Maybe Glenn, maybe that's for you,
somebody
but
else.
not for Mike. Yeah, somebody else, but not for me.
I totally
right?
get that. That's so funny. I totally get that.
But I love the analogy of the frog because I see that on the flip side. That was me in addiction because I didn't think that I was going to get to that point, but I did, where physically I had to have that drink in the morning. I don't care if the morning was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 a.m. or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. Whenever my morning was, I physically had to drink because my body was just needing it. And if I would have saw that path, your question was, would I have taken that first drink? I probably still would have, because that's just Mike. It goes back to that hole in the hole in the soul, the understanding the ism episode that we did. I probably still would have done it, but I love the frog analogy because isn't that kind of what we're doing now in recovery? In recovery, we're in a positive way. We're turning the gauge of the temperature in a proactive, positive way.
No, I really love that, and that's why I say that my recovery is also progressive.
Right.
Meaning, and they say it in the promises, the 9-step promises. They say sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Right. What I have learned and what I have, really taken to heart, I've learned patience. Because for me, it's mostly the slow train. My days of instant fixes, my days of the 30-day 12-step program are over. And I've learned that from the steps of AA. I've learned it from my sponsor. I've learned it from hanging out with you and other guys in the program. But one of the things along that way, because, I was really, I like to think of analogies, right, or think of metaphors. And I've shared this before. In fact, we did an episode on it, the right-hand, left-hand thing. It's hard to be a right-hander your whole life and immediately today start living as a left-hander.
Sure.
That takes time. It takes time. It takes focus. It takes awareness. It takes acceptance that, okay, I'm not a right-hander anymore. I want to use my right hand. I'm so good with my right hand. My right hand worked so many times, but now I can't do it. Right now I've got to use my left hand. So that was probably the number one metaphor of being okay with things taking a while. Like it made sense to me,
Yeah, when I was in my youth, we'd play street ball. Just
stick ball.
Yeah, kind of. Cheap bat, a tennis ball, and we'd just go hit the street and hit it.
That must have been before video games, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Social media,
and thank goodness before video, because I wasn't a pretty player.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I one of my friends was a switch hitter. And he could bat righty or bat lefty. And I thought that was so amazing. So I tried it. But to your point, how awkward that was at the beginning. But over a summer, by the end of the summer, I was feeling pretty comfortable about it. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge of knocking that ball with a left-handed bat. Was much more rewarding than the natural way, which was with the right-handed bat, if that makes any sense.
Right. So if recovery is not a race, let me throw out a question to you. How long do you think it should take to get through the 12 steps?
Well,
I see
not as bad. Yes.
I see the pause.
Well,
hey, Brian, that's the value of the video.
Yeah, right. Somewhere between tapping your watch and your entire life, right? So somewhere in between there, and it really goes to the end of the look. The way it was so funny when I first was in rehab and they were explaining, okay, we got 12 steps. The first 3, you can't. He can let him, right? And the next 3, so cleaning up, taking care of yourself, the next, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 10, 11, 12 were maintenance steps that kind of looped you back to 1. And it reminded me of that song, right, that we sang when we were kids. This is a song that never ends. It goes on and on, my friends. And then it just keeps looping, right? And
I never heard that one.
Oh, no, it's fantastic. And that's the program. But what I've found is that every time you go around, how many are there shows you watch on TV? Let me ask you this: are there shows that you've watched on TV more than once? Have you binged anything where you've watched a show more? I don't, name.
Rarely, I have done it. Rarely.
Okay.
There's a couple movies I've watched a lot.
Have you ever read a book twice?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. And the second time through that book, didn't you pick out things you didn't pick out the first time? And
repetition's the mother of all knowledge.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that every time I go through, like when I'm working, I'll try and get this into a succinct point. Yes, I got to
Good luck.
Yeah, right. Yes, I got to step 12, and I'm going to answer your question. How long should it take? I get to step 12, but step 12 says go help the next guy, right? And the next guy, we're starting to work on step 1, and as I'm working on step 1 with him, I'm working on step 1 with me. I'm readdressing. New things come up. Boy, did I really say I'm, this my life is being an alcoholic, right? Step 2, step 3, step 4. I get to step 12. It tells me to go help another guy. Now I'm helping another guy. I'm back to step 1, right? So it just keeps going on and on. But every time I go through it, I learn more stuff about not the person I'm working with, but guess who? I learn more stuff about me. I learn more stuff about me. And that's been the beauty of this progressive race for me. This progressive run is that as I go further and further down the path, I'm learning more about me, and it's really, for lack of a better term, a joy, because I learned some nasty things about me, but I get to work on them then and turn them into positive traits. Let me answer your question. I don't think, and I've read the first 164, and I said this before, 164 pages of the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book. Never in there does it reflect on how much time it takes to do a step. I think that as an individual, sometimes you're going to park on a step, and that's what's important to do.
So you said a lot.
Thank you. It's the tall coffee right here.
Dude, you have the tall one today.
Speaking.
No, so you said a lot, and I made a couple notes. So two of the things, or 2 words that I wrote down, was a perpetual cycle. So one of the key things that I took out, and I'm living it with you, is once you get through the 12 steps, and if you do the 12th step, which is reach out and help another alcoholic, then you're back at step 1 with them, right? And then you work the 12 with them. Right. Secondly, I love what you say about going through it a second time. I have learned more in this program from sponsoring guys and going through the steps with them than I ever did going them through myself. It just, whether it's the repetitions, the mother of all knowledge, whether it's seeing somebody else's, intention and purpose of doing the steps, or maybe I focus better, right? Because I'm with somebody and we're paying attention to each other, and maybe I paid attention better, right? So I love that you pointed that out. I love that you pointed out that there's no timeline, because there is no timeline,
no.
Right? And I love that you pointed out that it's different for each person, right? The one thing that I think is more important than time is that you put in the effort, the focus, and commitment on a daily, weekly, regular basis.
Boy, you can't understate that.
Yeah, the effort, focus, and commitment to do it, daily, weekly, on a regular basis. Because it doesn't matter, just keep going, right? Keep going. I think the key is always, taking the next step. Always, what's next? What can I do better? What can I work on next? How can I look at this? How can I work with my sponsor? And I think as long as you're doing that, and there's folks I know that are 7 years in the program, never really worked the steps, and they work a step a year, or they work, what I have seen with them from those types of folks is they stay sober, but they don't get the benefit of working the steps and the value and the rewards of working the steps from the program. Yeah, they don't drink, but when I talk to them, they sound miserable in all areas of their life. And what was nuts, I was talking to this one guy, the conversation I had with him was exactly word for word what we had 2 years ago.
Right.
And I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, the conversation hasn't changed because you're not doing anything to change the conversation.
Well, I love that line. I love that line. Glenn, I think that you hit the nail on the head, and that is that this thing takes effort. And so you're going to have two types of people at a minimum. You know, those that are willing to take the effort and press on and maybe experience a little pain as they're running. You know, I was a marathon runner. And so then the other kind of person is the kind of person that wants to embrace it because they want to perform well in the race, right? So in order to do that, have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Pete McGill?
No.
Okay, Pete McGill was he's an author, he's a coach, he's a 5-time USA Master Cross Country Runner of the Year, 5-time Runner of the Year. And I
That's why I've never heard of him.
Yeah. Oh, well, I cross countryed in high school, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for several reasons we'll talk about later. But he's got one quote that I hung on when I was running, and I think it's really applicable here this morning as we talk about races. And he says this. He says, "So the trick is to stop worrying about the stride or the pace. Find an effort level that you're confident you can maintain, and then make that your guide." Does that make sense? In other words, it's not your pace, because if you start a marathon, you start a cross country run, and your pace is too fast, you're going to burn out, right? It's that you got to find that what he calls your effort level, not your pace, but your effort level. And the differentiator there is, the way I read it and the way I applied it to my life is, you've got to run feeling just that little bit of pain, that you're not killing yourself in the first mile, but you're
stretching.
You're stretching. Thank you.
So I just had a great thought, Mike. It was a gem.
And where'd it go? Just right outside.
No idea.
Right,
no
going
idea.
outside. Yeah.
Oh yes. Here it comes back. Hold on. Here it comes back. Okay. So one of the things that I love about AA and working with a sponsor, because when you were talking about finding a pace that's comfortable, I mean, I'm kind of internally driven, right? So I can put myself at a pretty good pace. But there are times, especially in AA, especially in step 4, right? I see a lot of people put the brakes on, right? Because it's not a real comfortable step. You know, you start really digging in the dirt, right? So one of the things, and I really value about AA is the sponsorship, where, you know, as a sponsee, I needed my sponsor to nudge me, you know, to do check-ins. Hey, Glenn, how's that step 4 come along? You've been hanging on it. You know, what are we going to do, right? Because sponsors know that it's not the most pleasant step, right? And it takes work, it takes focus, it takes commitment to get through it. So it's good to have somebody set a plan, because I see people that try to do it without sponsorship, or their sponsor doesn't drive them, right. So I just see them hang out on step 4 for a year, and it's not that they're really working on stuff; they just don't want to face it.
Could it be a pace car?
I think a pace car is great.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a pace. You know, you've got the pace car. You've got the pace car that's keeping everybody in track. And the same thing, like when we were cross country running in high school, you know, we would take the lead. There would be like a lead run, and he kind of set the tone, you know.
So I really like that. Your sponsor can be your pace car,
right?
I love that.
Right.
All right, brother.
Responsibility. It's good stuff. So we ran the race today.
I love running the race. You know, it's better to run the race and run it slow, and not to run the race at all.
Right. Yep. Strap on the shoes, man. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Yep. Totally agree. All right, brother.
Is that a wrap?
Oh, that's a great, man. Progressive recovery. I think I want to trademark that.
All right.
I love it.
Boom.
All right, Chief.
All right,
see you later, man.
See you. Love you.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.